Hello, dear friends. This is Bob Hatton. This is the Encourager. So yesterday we saw that this story, this narrative that we're reading through, that it has a historical context. Now, I want to just repeat again, we are talking about this little story about Christmas, about the birth of Jesus and everything, but this is embedded in a much bigger story. I mean, the Christmas story is a big story. It's a big deal, but that's just a part, that's maybe the central part of this huge story, this huge narrative, what God is doing amongst the people of this world. Now, the historical context is that it was in the days when Herod was king in Judea, that there was a man called Zechariah who was a priest, and his wife was Elisabeth, who was also from the house of Aaron. Now, Aaron was a brother of Moses, and Aaron was the very first high priest in Israel. And all his descendants, all the male descendants of Aaron, they became priests. That was a destiny, and so they belonged to the same house. Elisabeth was also a descendant of Aaron, and the Bible says they were both righteousness. They did what was right in the eyes of God. They didn't have a complete revelation about what God wanted, but as far as he knew what he wanted, they did everything right in his sight. And they really loved God, and they lived with God. Now, they got married at some point, and I like to just imagine what it must have been like for Elisabeth when she met with her friends in a similar age who've also just got married, what they would talk about, and they would have their whole life was still in front of them. They would have lots of plans. And of course, these girls who had just freshly married, what they wanted was to have children. And one after the other had a child, and they would come with their little babies when they met, and it was a very good time, a time of joy, and so on. And the last friend probably had the child, and everybody kept looking at Elisabeth. Nothing coming yet. Nothing. No signs or anything, and then the children started to go to school, and they came into adolescence and so on. And Elisabeth found she had no subjects that she could talk to her friends about. She was still waiting. She was still hoping. They were still praying together that God would do something. But then when one of her friends became a grandmother, I guess then that Elisabeth, she resigned herself to the fact that it's not going to happen. She's not going to have a child. They're going to be childless, all their lives. That was something very dramatic for people in those days. It had a sense that there's a stigma accompanied it, that something was wrong, probably sin, probably they've done something wrong, and they had a bad conscience, although there was no need because they were both righteous before the Lord. But a sense of disappointment that you've not got everything in life. And maybe that's where you are at the moment. But wait a minute, the story is not finished, and whether it's children or something else, and you've not got what you wanted, you've not got what you desired, I just want to tell you just to relax, because God is still with you. And the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 8 and verse 28 that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called by his plan. So just relax and know that God is working in your life, and God was working in the life of Elisabeth and Zechariah, even though they were now getting a little bit old, aged. God was still there, and God had his great plan. He had the plan of the Christmas story, which was coming together now, and Elisabeth and Zechariah, they had a they had a part in that, but this part in this Christmas story was a part in the wider story, in this great narrative that was started in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, when God created the earth, and that will finish at the end of the book of Revelation, when God will dwell amongst his people, and we'll see him face to face. So this is a very exciting story, and we'll see how it continues tomorrow. So have a good day. God bless you. This is Bob Hatton. This is the Encourager.